Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience at the Austin Revolution Film Festival 2025. So in case you're new here or you just didn't see my video I did last year, this is now my second year at ARFF, the Austin Revolution Film Festival, which takes place in Austin, Texas, and it is very much so a filmmakers festival. It is designed by filmmakers for filmmakers. They have us all hang out in a very communal area. We all are at the same hotel pretty much. And we spend most of our time there networking and marketing along with just showing our films. And it is such a great experience. Both years I've been there, I've absolutely loved it from, the community aspect. They really push that and you feel it. Really enjoyed being able to see some old faces from last year as well as meet a lot of new people this year. It was a great experience. But yeah, so if you didn't watch my video last year, basically what I do is I just talk about my experience there, but then I also talk about some of my favorite things I got to watch there, because ultimately, like I said, this festival is about seeing other people's work and networking together and creating a community, and so I just really want to talk about some of the great stuff I saw. But real quick, to get out of the way, yes, this festival went well. We came home with one belt buckle this year. Last year, if you don't remember, we did win 3 awards. We won Best in Show, Best Actor, and Best Actress for The Softening. My new film, What Really Happened, came away with just 1, but it was a cool one for me because it was Best Director, which is something that I have not received at any festival at any point in my life for anything. So that was something that I'd really been wanting, with the festival run of the last film, not really getting that kind of recognition in that area, and getting Best in Show and Best Actor and all that stuff. I don't want to undermine that. That's fantastic, and I was so grateful for all of that. But to get this specifically was such a cool thing, such a cool moment. I really had to take a step back and let it hit me, because it took like an hour or two for it to actually hit me. They're like, oh, I got that. And I don't want to also forget to mention at all that, same sort of way that, when, an actor or actress wins an award, I kind of, if I'm their director, I feel like that's kind of a director's award too, because I was the director that helped lead to that performance. Similarly, winning Best Director, I can't not then turn right back to the cast and the crew that helped make that happen, because I wouldn't be half the director that I am without the amazing people that I work with. So shout out to everybody involved with What Really Happened, from Elemento, Logan and Mitch, to Victoria, Palmer, Rachel, and everybody in the whole cast and crew. You guys are awesome, and this is because of you. So that's pretty much all I had to say about the festival experience, but I do want to talk about, like I said, some of the great things that I saw this year at the festival. Now, I picked 15 things in particular I wanted to talk about, but I didn't rank them. I'm just going to go through them alphabetically, because I don't want to make this a competition or have people feeling bitter about where they placed or whatever. And frankly, there's some more shorts and even features I could have talked about, and I had to limit it to a certain amount, so I hope nobody gets offended that I leave them off this list, because there were so many talented people. I also only got to see half the things that got shown, not even really. So without further ado, these are some of my favorite things I saw this year. First up, Bloody and Bruised, the untold story of the back room. So obviously, like I said, last year we won Best in Show, and so not that that's the expectation, but it's the bar you've set for yourself, and so you're kind of hoping to get there again, but obviously we didn't win it, but Bloody and Bruised did. And I'll be completely honest, I can't be mad at all about that, because Bloody and Bruised, I think, is the best thing I saw that weekend. It was so well done. For those of you who don't know anything about it, which you probably won't know anything about most of these, but if you're from the Austin, Texas area, or Texas in general, you might know about The Back Room. This was a documentary about a music venue called The Back Room that really catered toward metal and hard rock, and then later hip-hop and punk as well. It really was cutting edge and doing the things nobody else was willing to do, doing the scary thing. It was, I believe they said, the first venue in the Texas area that allowed hip-hop performances, and of course was pushing the limits with what they were doing as far as metal and later punk as well. So really brutal scene. It sounded like it was both a lot of fun and absolutely terrifying to be involved in, But, you know, me being from Philadelphia, I have no attachment to the Texas area or Austin in particular. And so with these kind of documentaries, there's a big chance that I was just going to be like, oh, that's interesting or whatever, don't care. This is made by Texans for Texans and they all really care about it. I believe this documentary is doing really well in the Texas Film Festival circuit. And for obvious reasons, it's great, but it goes so above and beyond telling the story in such a relatable and profound and professional way. It looked fantastic and edited wonderfully. I think it won Best Editing as well. I'm not positive, but I think it did. I mean, I was fully invested in this venue, in this town, in this culture. Having just seen this hour and a half or however long it was documentary, it made me like feel like I had missed out on being a part of this, and also at the same time kind of felt like I had been a part of it, even though I had no idea it existed before that day. So that's just expert storytelling. I've never attempted or thought about how I would do a documentary, but watching that I was like, man, I'm just, you know, you spend a lot of the time as a filmmaker or critic thinking about how you would do it, and so I spent some time doing that, but the rest of the time I was just like, this is just fascinating, and I'm so invested in every story that gets brought up, everything to do with both the venue and the bands and the people, the town, frankly. It was such a good story. So like I said, can't be mad at all that it won Best in Show because it 100% deserved it. I don't think anything else would have deserved it more than Bloody and Bruised did. Bloody and Bruised, by the way, was directed and written by Jay Boudreau Partida. Met him in person. He was really cool. Also deserved the credit he got for that. Next up is a short film that I saw called Distant Memories that was written and directed by Chris Esper. And its log line on IMDb is that it's an exploration of Anna, an aging woman, as she suffers from a mind-altering disease. So this movie is very much kind of an allegorical take on what it's like, or what it would look like or feel like to go through dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that, and you see such amazing visuals of this woman in just this room with like a bunch of relics that represent memories or moments or fading ideas, and it all is such great imagery. But the moment that stuck out to me in particular was there was a shot of Anna trying to put a VHS tape that represented some memories back into the TV, and it just wouldn't go back in. And that shot, it was so powerful. It was so beautiful. The whole thing was so simple yet wonderfully done. Like, it didn't have to do more than it did. It did exactly what it needed to do and looked beautiful doing it. There was a lot of stuff that was actually filmed on a camcorder as well, on film I believe he said, that helped create this nostalgia feel and felt very real. Like these memories that they're going through, it felt like they could have been actual footage from real life, and I debated whether or not it was. And so it's just expertly done. It's just a 10-minute short, but it really captures your imagination and your emotions, and yeah, I loved it. I really did. Next up is a short film called El Llorón, which was written and directed by Rodrigo Moreno Fernandez. Felipe is a professional crier. Funeral homes pay him to come in and cry during funerals for their guests. But after hearing a joke, he is unable to cry anymore, destroying his profession. He must find a way to relearn the crying craft of his ancestors. This is very clearly a comedy, and I talked to Rodrigo about it and asked him, I was like, yeah, I got like a hint of Jared Hess in there. Are you a fan of Jared Hess? And he's like, yes, Napoleon Dynamite is great. And so, yeah, there was a little bit of that style comedy in there, a little bit bizarre, a little bit ridiculous, very well timed out comedy with great performances too, by the way. All around just a really funny story and very unique. Like I said, it did remind me of Jared Hess, but that's not to take anything away from this. It wasn't like a copycat film or anything, just you could feel the inspiration there, but I loved it. I love Jared Hess. I love Napoleon Dynamite. I love Nacho Libre. Some of the funniest comedies of all time to me, and this was very much in that vein, and just such a unique story idea. Like, who writes about, you know, a professional mourner forgetting how to cry because he heard a joke that made him laugh, and it's just, you know, that out there kind of comedy, like a Napoleon Dynamite or like a Nacho Libre or something, or even like a Will Ferrell style comedy where the premise is just so bizarre, but everybody just accepts it and rolls with it. Had a lot of fun with this one too. I thought it was hilarious. Next up is another short film called I Am Not the Voice in My Head. It was written and directed by Derek Fleming, and it's starring Richard C. Jones. It's a very simple concept. They actually said that they filmed it in one day, which I think is fantastic. It just follows a guy who is seemingly in some sort of purgatory. He's meeting with another version of himself as he's discussing what to do next, whether he should ring this bell or exit through the door. And it's also very clearly, as you can tell from the title, it's about like the battle with the voices in your head, and whether that's depression or anxiety or whatever that may be for you. And it was just, one, it looks brilliant. I love the design of it. I love the concept too of having these two roles played by one actor. The actor actually won Actor of the Year, I believe, for this performance, so shout out to him, and shout out to Derek for the directing in that film. And it's such a fun concept. The visuals kind of remind me almost of like a Michel Gondry or Spike Jonze kind of thing. I think it looks great, even though it was made very cheaply. Like I said, it was just, you know, like one guy filming it pretty much, and then one actor, and filmed in a day. So it's like, it's a pretty small shoot, and they're fairly limited with what they could do with it, but that didn't stop their imagination from going. And so they made something, once again, very unique. And I'm probably going to use the word unique a lot, but that's really what I care about when you watch stuff like this and you go to festivals like this. I mean, none of us are gonna have a huge budget. I don't know what the largest budget at this festival was, but I guarantee nobody was spending $1 million on it. These are like starving artists to an extent. We're all trying to make something because we care about it, not because people are paying us the big bucks to do it. And so it comes down to uniqueness, it comes down to creativity, it comes down to trying to make something authentic or different or personal to us. And this is very much that for me. This was just so fascinating to me, and I loved, you know, it's hard to, because I don't want to spoil any of these things, so I don't want to talk about the ending really, but like, it's just so fascinating to see into like the mind of this filmmaker and see where they're coming from. And I've had so much fun talking to most of these filmmakers. I didn't get to talk to every single one of these guys, but I talked to most of them, and it's so cool like how open and communicative everybody is and how warm and welcoming they are. And so it's fun to be able to point out when somebody's making something good and they're also seemingly a good person as well. Granted, I don't know anybody on a personal basis, really. I've met a couple people a few times, but like, I'm over-explaining. These seem like cool people and they're making cool projects, and I think that's pretty cool. Next up is a feature film I saw called Lone Wolves, which was directed by Ryan Cunningham, and it was written by Matt Foss and Cora Vander Broek, who also starred as the two leads in this film. It's a quirky little comedy with a couple of bizarre moments that follows a woman seeking a sperm donor who then gets a response from a old friend from middle school who they almost went to the prom together but didn't. It's kind of a complex little story that they've got going that evolves and expands throughout the runtime of this film. A lot of it is just sitting and talking together, but it is never boring at all. It is completely enrapturing and fascinating the whole time, and part of that is the editing is just really well done. The editing keeps the pacing great. It keeps it flowing, keeps it snappy. The camera work also keeps that entertaining despite it, a lot of it being two people sitting down talking. The angles and the way that it's just the artistic, like they're in these conjoined like hotel rooms that they have like the door that can separate the two rooms. They've got it open, and so they're sitting there talking, and just, I don't know, the blocking of that looked fascinating to me. So even though it's just people sitting and talking, it looked great. But also, the two actors in this film are fantastic. Matt Foss in particular actually reminded me a lot of Brendan Fraser at times, which is a huge compliment. I love Brendan Fraser. And so I really just enjoyed being kind of just dropped into this weird little world with these weird little characters dealing with their problems and trying to figure out what their place in the world is and who they are and what they want to be and all of that. Like I said, it is a lot of talking, but once again, at no point gets boring at all. and is extremely fascinating, both from a writing perspective, directing, and then the cast as well. Like I said, casting was fantastic. And during the Q&A, they talked about how these two, Cora and Matt, have been working together for years, and then I think this is like the first movie they did together, but they had been doing stage production since like high school together, and now 20 years later making this movie, and I thought that was a wonderful story as well. But yeah, just a fantastic little film here that I frankly would have had as the best feature. It didn't win best feature, but Lone Wolves to me was the best feature film I saw that weekend. And I didn't see all of them, I will admit that. I didn't see every feature film. To me, Lone Wolves was the best. I absolutely loved it, and I wish it got more praise than it did, because I don't know if it won any awards at all. Maybe it did. It definitely got nominated for a few. I don't remember if it won. I think it won at least one. I'm not positive, but regardless, it was just so good. And like I said, from the acting especially, but also, I mean, the writing, directing, all of the camera work, everything about it was so good. Next up is a short film called Lorica, which is about a young priest who is confronted with the horrific abuse perpetrated by one of their mentors. It was written and directed by Benjamin Carlucci and co-written by Susanna Carlucci, and it was starring Jess Paul as Anna, who was that young priest that we mentioned. I met Ben last year at the last year's festival for like 2 seconds. Didn't really get to talk to him a whole lot, but like saw him in person again this time. I was like, I feel like I know you, and he's like, I feel like I know you, and we got to talking a little bit more this time. We saw each other's films, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was, obviously, it's about, you know, corruption within the Catholic Church, which is a very touchy subject and can often disintegrate into name-calling and belittling and ridiculing the entire religion. And I thought this movie did a really good job of not mocking the religion, but just pointing out the flaws in certain members of the congregation or the church as a whole. And I thought that that was handled really well. I also thought there were moments where the camera work was absolutely brilliant. It looked fascinating at times. And then Jess Paul, I think, is a very good actress. I enjoyed seeing her in a couple projects this weekend. And yeah, so all around, I just really enjoyed this. Maybe enjoy is the wrong word, because it's kind of depressing. It's kind of dark, but it was a powerful story that didn't lean into gimmick. They didn't make the same mistake that so many people do, the easy mistake of just saying, well, the whole religion's bad because of the bad people that are involved in it. And I'm, you know, somebody that has talked a lot of shit about religion at points, but I think that this movie was very tasteful in the way that they did it, and there was a lot of attention to detail that I found absolutely fascinating. I had a lot of fun talking to Ben about his film and what he was trying to accomplish and what his goals were. Next up is another short film, and forgive me if I mispronounced the title, but it is Maison du Ted, Dinner Date, and it was created by Nicholas Sains. I think I said that name correct as well, who, from what I gather, is a bit of a stand-up comedian, but also is making short films. You're gonna have to trust me on this, because I can find very little about him other than his Instagram page. I did talk to him in person, though. Hilarious guy, very quirky, very offbeat. Loved his style, loved his whole gimmick within the short film, because so the short film, obviously, it's about a dinner date, but there's a couple of gimmicks here where, one, it's all in one shot. They only did 4 takes and then just went with the best one, because they said that was the budget they had, was enough for 4 takes. And so it was obviously, you know, rehearsed out as kind of like a play of sorts, where this guy brings over a girl to his apartment for a dinner date, but he gets a little caught up playing different roles. And it was so funny, so different, so unique, and just Nicholas is just a very unique kind of guy. And I think based on what I've done with my limited research here, it appears that he dabbles in stand-up, and I'm not sure if he does that more or does the filmmaking more, but regardless, he's a performer that has this energy to him that is reminiscent of some of the greats, kind of like almost, I don't know, it feels like incorrect to compare him to other people, but like an Andy Kaufman kind of thing, or a Mitch Hedberg kind of thing, or I don't know, even like an Emo Phillips kind of thing, where he's just kind of like a little bit out there and a little bit quirky, and I loved it. It was so much fun. Got to talk to him a little bit afterward, and I was just like, man, you're awesome. Your film was awesome. I love that it was all in one take. I love the humor of it. It was one of the funniest things I saw all weekend, and it was just so bizarre and such a wild stab out into the artistic world of just like, nobody else has done this, let's do this and let's have fun with it. And it absolutely was fun. It was so much fun. It may have been the most fun I had all weekend, just laughing and like, what in the world am I seeing? And it was all because like his personality, his kind of energy was infectious, and I thought it was fascinating, so shout out to him. Next up, we have a short film called My Shadow, which was created by Astra Silver Burke, who made this as, I believe, a student filmmaker. My first thought, honestly, when I saw it, it really hit me and was reminiscent of Skinamarink. I did have a chance to talk to her afterward, though, and she did change my mind on that a little bit, where it did seem it was detached from that and had different kind of messaging, and even if it did have a similar style to it or flair to it, I wouldn't label it as a copycat at all. I still think it was very unique, and I, once again, love that. It felt the most different of anything I saw this weekend, which I love. You know, if I see something different, I'm gonna pay attention. The different and the bold and the going for it, I love that. So I love getting to meet Astra. I thought she was such an interesting and kind person. She came to my film as well, and we had a great discussion about both films. But yeah, I was very fascinated by seeing into her mind with this, because this is once again kind of one of those movies that's very much just a projection of your innermost thoughts onto the screen without much of an explanation, and I love that. I remember just sitting there very invested, very tuned in, and trying to match the frequency, because I was like, wow, this is saying something, and it's so unique, and the imagery was awesome, and I loved seeing this on display. And having talked to Astra, I'm not sure what her plan is, you know, after school and what she's gonna do moving forward, but I would be very curious to see any other projects she wanted to take a stab at, because, you know, being so young and so talented already is something that is very intriguing to me. So I don't know if she's gonna make anything else or not, but I really did enjoy getting a chance to see this. I thought it was, like I said, maybe the most unique thing I saw all weekend, and such a visual, like, there's certain things, I think I've used this phrase before, but there's certain art that, like, it just feels like you're feeding your soul or your mind or something. Like you're getting a boost to your creativity just because you saw somebody else be really creative. And I mean, everybody, all of these filmmakers are extremely creative, but this one was just the most out there in a way that I was just like, man, I want to push those boundaries. I want to try and reach for something like this too, where, you know, there's certain things that I've mentioned this before for sure, where like you see it as a creator and you're like, it makes you kind of want to give up and retire, because like, I could never make anything like that. And this was kind of how I felt, was like, I don't think I could ever make a film like this. So I get really excited when I see other people make stuff like this, because I'm not saying I could never make a film equally as good, but I couldn't make one like that. And so you just get so thankful with the diversity of people's minds and the way people think about art and film and how they approach it in different ways. So yeah, there's a lot of words to say. Man, that was fascinating, and I would love to see more if she decides to make more. Next up is another short film called Olive, which was written and directed by Paul Maizia. It follows a couple that, after a 6-month separation, get together for a lunch to try to rekindle their romance. But as tensions rise, evasive conversation and unsettling interruptions blur the line between reality and memory, making it apparent that someone has demons that they're unwilling to face. So this was a movie that I decided to go see because a lot of people advertise in the hall. You know, they put up a poster, they put out cards trying to get people to, you know, catch their eye, make them want to go see it. And usually that doesn't really work too much on me, because for the most part, I want to go see the stuff that I know was nominated for awards, or that, you know, I know it's made by somebody that I like, or maybe I met somebody and they're like, hey, come see my thing. So the little cards or whatever don't really do a whole lot for me typically, but I saw this card in particular and it caught my eye because there was a tagline on it. I forget what it was exactly. It was like a review by somebody. Hold on, I think I have the card somewhere. Okay, well, nope, I've got the wrong wrong one. I got the small one, but there was a larger one that had reviews on it, and one review said something to the effect of like, oh, the twist is so unnerving, or something like that. So I went in going like, ooh, cool, this is a mindfuck, a mind-bending short film here. I love, you know, stuff like this. That's what I live for. Those are the kind of things that I'm always trying to see, trying to write myself and stuff like that. And so I was really excited for that. Sat down and was so enraptured by the dialogue, how it was written and how it was performed by these two actors. Let me double check. Reynaldo Pacheco and Verona Elia, that they just made me forget about anything else outside of that moment. I was just watching them and their interactions. So by the time the movie did shift into this other dimension, like it says, they're unwilling to face demons that, you know, whatever, that they may have. And they don't mean that literally. There's no demons in this. I was just so fascinated by what was going on with this relationship and these characters that by the time that came around, I was blindsided by it. And it was not only like a plot twist, it kind of like felt like a double plot twist, and I was just, my mind was blown. I loved it. I thought Paul did a great job. Also got to talk to him about it, had a couple of questions about it, because I was like, one, amazing, just absolutely loved it, loved the writing, loved the dialogue, everything about that. And then there was one shot in there that I had a question about. I was like, was that done on purpose or was that a happy accident? And he was like, it was a happy accident. I'm like, I love that. I love that shit. But yeah, so he seemed cool. Film was great, loved it. Just a really, really well made and well told, well acted. The editing was really good too. Just everything about it was so much fun. Once again, like these kind of festivals, there's a wide range. You know, you got people making stuff for $40,000, maybe $50,000. I don't know what the highest end is. And then you've got people making stuff for like $800, and you know, so there's a range of quality there. Not saying that you can't make something good with no money. None of us have money, really. But you know, so you see a range, and you know, as somebody that is at this, you know, festival showing something, you can't help but kind of compare. You're not trying, but you do, and you're like, okay, we look better than that, we look worse than that, yada, yada, yada. But this was one of those that you're just like, wow, this looks so good. You know, same sort of thing as like Bloody and Bruce, where like, those are the kind that you just look at it and you're like, wow, this looks so much better than everything else. And like I said, there's a lot of good stuff. Don't want to say that there wasn't anything else that looked as good, but like those two in particular, I was just like, man, they so good. So good looking. Great work. Great work by everybody involved. Next up is a short film called Speechless, which was directed by Melissa Brunsky. It was written by Chris Sage and Steven Schroeder. It was also produced by Shanna Riker, who I met and talked to about the film. It's also starring Garrett Swear and M. Rose Miller. The basic plot of this is, it is another kind of like bizarre, unique, love that word, feeling movie. Remind me a lot, once again, of like the kind of Michel Gondry or maybe Spike Jonze, maybe Charlie Kaufman style movie here, where you just take something, like why I say Michel Gondry in particular is Mood Indigo, where she's got like a plant growing in her lungs or whatever, where it's like, that's fantastical, that would never happen, but it's like, it's a metaphor and it's representing something. And so this is about this guy and a girl that are at this funeral, and it's like a pseudo-silent film for half of the short film runtime, because he's unable to speak, because every time he tries, these letter toys or pieces or felts or whatever fall out of his mouth instead, and he can't actually get any words out. And obviously it's an allegory, and I love allegorical stories. I love visual storytelling as well, and the camera work is beautiful. I thought this movie looked great. I loved the specific shots that I'll be showing right here, I'm sure, where I was just like, this just looks great. I love how this looks. I'm a sucker for camera work like this, and you know, direction like this, of, you know, blocking and everything, no pun intended. I'm glad that I got to see it, because like I said, you dive for originality, you dive for the unique things, the creative things, and this was just so much fun to watch. Especially, like I said, the visual, just how it looked visually, but also, like I said, that Michel Gondry-esque flair to it, where I don't know, I didn't get to talk to the writers about it or anything, so I don't know if that's what they were inspired by, or if they even watched those kind of movies, but that's what it reminded me of. And Michel Gondry is one of my favorite writer-directors ever. Love his style of storytelling, and so this was right up my alley, and I really enjoyed that. It was such a fun, unique little idea that I was like, damn, how did I never think of anything like this before? And I feel like those are the most fun ideas, or typically ideas that you're like, man, we could have been doing this years ago, but for some reason nobody thought to do it. How did nobody think to do this before? It's so brilliant and so cool. So yeah, I really did enjoy it. Next up is a short film called Still that was written and directed by, and I apologize for butchering this preemptively, ARFF Abigail. I probably said that wrong, and I'm sorry, but she was such a nice person. I met her immediately following the showing of her short film. Actually, I met her before I saw the short film, I think, and it was already on my list of things I wanted to watch. But then I met her, and I was like, yep, definitely going to see it. Still is about a mother whose child goes missing. It's an allegorical, like, horror thriller kind of thing, and I absolutely loved it. It was interesting hearing the story of how it got made, too, because she wrote it as, like, a drama, realized it didn't work, filmed a couple extra things, and completely reworked it through editing with her editor, and made it into something entirely different, and you would never tell because it was just fantastic for what it was. And she did specifically ask for me to not spoil anything, so I'm not going to. I will just say that, like, it is absolutely amazing for, you know, allegorical horror fans, and I am one, and I absolutely loved the visuals associated with it. The dialogue is so powerful, and I thought so ARFF also stars in it, and she was great in it. She wrote this based off of a very personal story to her, and all around it was just such a pleasure to watch. Once again, maybe pleasure is not the right word. It is disturbing what it is intended to be, and it is very effective. I absolutely adored it. It was also one of the very best things I saw that weekend, and I was so grateful that I was able to catch it and talk to her multiple times about it. Great person, great film. And that's why this festival is just so awesome. You meet so many cool people who make cool things. And this was such a wonderful, happy accident, it almost seems like. Because it wasn't what they intended, what they set out to make. And it became so great by, you know, obviously hard work, but also a lot of, a little bit of luck, it seems like. So absolutely love that, especially if you love that allegorical stuff. So good. So this one's another one that I'm struggling to find information on because it doesn't seem like they put it up on IMDb yet. But so Murda Hill, which is, yes, actually her name. Murda is short for something, but it's like Meredith or something. So great name, cool person. She made a short film called True Crime Fan, which was an absolutely hilarious little piece, which is like kind of a parody of those true crime documentaries where it follows a kid who's just a really big fan of said true crime documentaries and serial killers and stuff like that. And so because he's such a big fan, he gets swept up in one himself. And it was such a fun thing with great visuals attached to it, great editing, great performances by everybody, really snappy writing, just a really funny short film. And Murda Hill, like I said, she was a lot of fun to talk to about it as well. She seems like a great person. So wanted to shout that out. Just not a whole lot to say about it other than it's really funny, looks really good, and just a lot of fun. Next up is another short horror film called Twice as Shy, which was written and directed by Angelica Heimel, and it is about two lifelong friends, one of which has been scratched by a werewolf, and so now will become a werewolf, they believe. This is the first full moon since being scratched, so they are preparing for the worst case scenario, but there is a lot of personal drama that needs to be worked through, a lot of things that have been left unsaid for too long that need to be talked about. And this film also is in fact allegorical, so I love it even more because of that. Not only is the acting great and the visuals are a lot of fun, the atmosphere of it is great, but it is a story that really is powerful because of the messaging to it. I got to ask Angelica about it because I had some theories that proved to be wrong, and her answers were even more fascinating than my theory because there's clearly commentary on being like straight passing gay guys, and there was some question. I was like, what does the werewolf represent? And I don't want to give any answers away or anything because I had my theories, she had her answer. And you know, the thing with art though is I think even even if it's an answer that wasn't intended by the writer or director, it is still an answer that can be very valuable. So I don't necessarily want to say no to any ideas, but even having her answer, which I thought was great, and then my own personal headcanon that I had come up with, all of it, however you take it, I thought it was a very fascinating story. Once again, unlike anything I've really seen before. I mean, obviously there are romance movies involving werewolves, but this isn't Twilight. It's nothing like Twilight. It even makes fun of Twilight a little bit, which was fun. But yeah, it is just a very unique take on that allegorical horror kind of idea, but also making it this romance drama kind of thing. And just a movie just simmering, just ready to blow at any point, it feels like. No, there were no innuendos there, don't read into it. And I loved the atmosphere of this movie. It was so much fun to watch. Next up is another short film called Woodworking, which was written and directed by April Yanko. Yanko? I never asked you how you pronounce your last name. I'm sorry, April. But if you watched my video last year, I'm pretty sure I gave the personal Simon's Rand's award of favorite thing I saw last year to April's Butt Stuff, which is a fantastic little short film. Absolutely loved it. It was very high production. A lot of work went into that. And I talked to April about how she was kind of nervous following it up. And this, I thought, was a perfect follow-up because it doesn't try to outdo that or go above and beyond even bigger. It was actually very stripped back. And it was in a block of short films that people actually, they didn't seem to know that it was immediately going to be hilarious when it started, because it's like comedy horror, and so people kind of seemed to be holding their breath a little bit when it first started, like, is this gonna actually be scary? And then the comedy hits, and it is hilarious. Once again, one of the funniest things I saw this year. April, I'm just fucking up your whole name. April is just one of the funniest people I've ever met. Got a great sense of humor and is extremely good at getting that humor into writing and then onto the screen. Better than anybody I know at that. And so it was just a pleasure to be able to see them again. Her and Justin were there. So I'm glad I saw another one of her short films. This one's ridiculous. So much fun. I mean, granted, of course, Butt Stuff is equally ridiculous, but I just wasn't prepared for what this was gonna be. At least Butt Stuff, like, you hear that name, you're like, you see the poster, you know it's gonna be ridiculous. This one, I was just not prepared for it. It was absolutely hilarious. Loved it. Really did. Probably funniest thing I saw all weekend. And last, but certainly not least, I do want to talk about a short film called Worm Girl, which was written and directed by Drew Dameron. I saw one of his shorts last year as well. His style of comedy is also extremely unique. He's very hilarious. Has this, I think I compared him to like the Coen brothers last time, and I still have that vibe from this too, now that I think about it. I kind of forgot that comparison, but just a very unique style to him. The last one that he made, I saw last year, also visually was amazing. The camera work was absolutely fantastic. This one, he went for a pseudo sort of like found footage motif. He explained in the Q&A afterward, actually, that he was going for like a reality TV show kind of thing, but then ended up dropping like the cast interviews, and so it became like a sort of found footage type thing where obviously the video quality is lower because of the equipment they used to film it, but that doesn't stop the camera work from being absolutely fantastic still, with the angles, the zooms, the pulls, everything about how it looks and feels is oozing with his style, which is absolutely hilarious, but also extremely unique and honestly just very talented. Like, to make footage that you film in that way still look that good, it's hard. You know, you watch like different filmmakers, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Ari Aster, before he was famous, made a version of Beau is Afraid, which he filmed like that on a camcorder, very cheaply. And you can tell in that, like, oh, this guy's going to be good because he made this style of footage look good despite his means. And so that's something that, even though Drew Dameron has means outside of this, he can make things on better cameras and stuff. He actually said filming it this way, it wasn't actually any cheaper, he said. But, like, it looks cheaper and it feels cheaper, but it still looks great because the skill behind the camera work and the directing is just that good. I should give a shout out to, I guess, the cinematographer, John Nodorft. Okay, I believe they worked together last time too. Yeah, so what I saw last year from them was An American Family Calamity, which, like I said, I raved about the camera work for that, or at least I hope I did, because I should have. So John Nodorf, who wasn't there this time, I don't know if he was there last time or not, but he was the cameraman, again, the cinematographer for Worm Girl, and once again, like I said, despite the poor quality, if you will, of the camera work is fantastic, the directing is fantastic. It's such a bizarre, that's the best way you can describe Drew Dameron, and I think he would agree, is bizarre. He's so bizarre, his style is bizarre, his humor is bizarre, he himself seems a little bit bizarre, and I love him for it. I think his filmmaking is fantastic, and I love it. I thought the humor was on point, it was perfectly timed. It also had Hoyt Richards in it, by the way, who I've seen in a couple things. He is a Philly fan as well. He's from Philly originally, Eagles fan, so shout out to Hoyt, love you. I mentioned her earlier, Jess Paul was also in this, and just all around, this movie was so fun, so unique, so weird, so quirky, so bizarre, and unlike anything you're gonna see from anybody else ever, and I loved it. I loved every second of every bizarre little moment in this movie. What a film, what a festival. So yeah, like I said, I could keep going. This video could be twice as long, talking on and on and on about things I had fun watching, because there were plenty more things that I could have talked about. So shout out to Austin Revolution, everybody that works there, everybody that I've met through there. You guys are all awesome. Hope to be back there next year again, because it feels like a family. So many talented people, so many creative people, and so many good people, like just good peoples. And so I had a lot of fun this year, and glad that I got to see so many great projects. Hope you guys enjoyed my project too. And yeah, to you, the audience, thanks for watching yet another video of me talking about some of my friends and the stuff they made, because I had a lot of fun with it, and I hope you guys do too. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. I know, like I said, I'm not posting as much here as I used to, but if you somehow missed it, the First Thoughts have got their own channel now. They're over there. The Spare Room stuff is on their own channel. Links for those are below as well. So please don't be missing out, because you don't know where it's at. It's all there. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.